Vance Kepley is a self-taught artist who has worked in various mediums, including drawing, painting, and graphic design for over 20 years. He now has his designs here on TeePublic. Old school, unique, stylish. He is also available to help you with your original TeePublic designs. Make sure you visit Vance Kepley Art 1972 at teepublic.com. You'll be glad you did.
We welcome you to Monster Magazine Weekly. And we are so glad you took the time to dig us up. So, let's get to the wooden stake point, shall we? Welcome to Monster Magazine Weekly, the only show that isn't weekly, but we really don't care. We're back. Last week we were at a show, June the 8th, at the Columbia, Tennessee area at the Columbia Comic and Toy Expo, and we had a blast. And there's a video of that, and we hope you check it out. And tonight it's me, Vance Kepley. We got Ricky Blaylock. We got David Walker, and our very special guest host, Slim Carody.
Yeah. Even though tonight I would like to be referred to as Sassafras Slim Carody. Thank you.
Sassafras Slim.
And if I may make a slight correction here.
Oh, yeah.
You forgot to mention the really special guest, and that would be Rockin' Rebel Ricky Blaylock.
Woo! Woo!
I don't know if Vance told you, but that's what we dubbed you this week, Rick.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that. It's taking a sneak peek at Twitter here and there at work. I couldn't really respond because I don't want to get caught with my phone at work.
If you're not following Monster Magazine on Twitter, you're missing a lot of fun.
And most of it's at my expense.
Yes.
Well, that wasn't really at your expense. We were more talking you up, calling you the Rockin' Rebel.
Yeah, you're the rockin' rebel who wears underoos.
Yeah, that comes out on stage in underoos.
Yeah.
Ricky, you're our rock. You're just a rebellious rock.
Yes, Rick, who wears underoos.
I've always been that way.
And loves Sasquatches.
Yes, that's true.
So if you don't know about this stuff, follow us on Twitter. The fun is always there. Now, for all of you who are a little bit late getting to the game, Monster Magazine number 6 is out. It's all about Kolchak the Night Stalker. We got to interview Jack Greenwich, who played Ron Updike on the show. We got to talk with Mark Dewinsiak, who is an authority on the Kolchak stuff. And we got to talk to Sterling Clark, who actually worked with Jeff Rice on a lot of stuff, just like Mark Dewinsiak. A lot of cool information. We do like a checklist of the episodes. There's comics inside. One by me and Slim. There's yeah, there he is. And there's one by Rob Romaine. There's one by, well, me, Vance Kepley. There's a lot of cool stuff in this issue. It's got 3 different covers. One by me, one by Sterling Clark, and one by the incredible Rockin' Rebel Ricky Blaylock. Woo! Anyway.
And I was even going to comment that there was actually some very good writing by our very own Dave Walker in there as well.
Oh, yes.
I was quite impressed with the writing.
Oh, you read it?
Yes, sir.
David Walker is a fantastic writer, and we really do appreciate him coming aboard on the book and letting us crash in his house to do these episodes. We appreciate you, David. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of old school with all that. Like, I generally don't read on devices, and when I get sent the proofs of the monster magazines, I usually just often look at the pictures. But I sat down and read the Dave stuff, and I liked it.
Good deal. I'm honored.
There's a video going in the background. It kind of distracted me for a minute. Anyway, this is going to be a very brief topic because we're kind of hurting on time tonight. But we're going to be talking about horror comics. Now, this covers a large time period. We're talking about from the beginning of comics, back in the 20s and 30s, to the present day. There's tons of horror comics to be seen. And we're just going to kind of touch base on, what is some of our favorites, some that we remember. And Slim, would you like to go first?
Yes, and I was going to say, why don't we call this a part one? Since it's such a vast
That's
topic.
true.
But let's not promise that we're going to do a part two.
Oh no, never promise.
That's the rule of YouTube, isn't it?
So this is Horror Comics Part 1. Expect Part 3 very soon.
Never say ever again.
All right.
But yeah, actually, I was going to go with a new school horror comic that I read a couple years back that I thought was just very good. It's called Flesh and Blood by Robert, I guess it's Tennille, and Neil Vokes.
Ooh.
Are any of you familiar with that one?
I know of Neil Vokes,
I do
but
know of him.
I don't know the comic.
Flesh and Blood is essentially kind of a love letter to Hammer horror, but it does the thing that Hammer never did, where it brings all the monsters and stuff together.
That's right, Hammer never did that.
So it's like Hammer was, a little more adult. There's some, a little bit of nudity here and there, folks, just to warn you, and some blood. But yeah, I thought it was a great story, really well done. And they actually deliberately drew Dr. Frankenstein to look like Peter Cushing.
Oh, cool. Who published it? Do you remember?
I do. Let me see. I have the picture right in front of me, but I can't make out their monster something.
Okay. Well,
And the artwork style is real. I mean, it's kind of cartoony. It's got a Bruce Timm-esque feel to it, but it really works. I don't know. I really like it a lot.
that is cool.
What's the name of it one more time?
Flesh and Blood.
Flesh and Blood.
Even though I'm looking right now, and it's $196 on Amazon. So
Holy moly. Maybe the publishers will do a reprint or something.
there's 3 volumes, and the covers are done by Daniel. I guess it's Brayerton. I guess is how you pronounce it.
Did he?
Vance, you should know his work.
Did he do the? Yeah, he did the like these nocturnals.
The Nocturnals, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. I knew that name. Wow, that's a good choice. I need to find that.
It's great, and like it has, of course, Dracula, the Wolfman, Van Helsing's in it. Carmilla is a character.
Oh, cool. David? Hey, horror
Well-
comics.
I grew up, in the age of the Warren comics,
Cool.
as did Ricky.
Yes.
I was very fond of creepy and eerie in particular, although I liked Vampirella. There were a couple, sometimes famous monsters would run a strip from one of the strip comics. They'd reprint. And there was one that they reprinted, I think it was from a creepy. It was about this vampire who looked really cool. He looked kind of like Anthony Zerbe as a vampire. Do you know who Anthony Zerbe is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was the villain in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park.
Oh, okay, wow, good bull.
Plus, he was in the
Omega Man.
Mega Man. Yes, he was the head zombie or whatever they were. Were they zombies or vampires or they're mutants?
Well, in the Omega Man, it was more like they were mutants. They
Yeah.
weren't zombies, but they
That's
weren't
right.
vampires.
Yeah, but he's a creepy guy, and it almost looked like they modeled the vampire after him if he were a vampire with his long black hair.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, it had a beautiful, sort of a clean, lots of darkness in each strip. And he's a vampire who commandeers a spaceship. And he wants to get to a planet. I think he kills everybody on board the spaceship as it's about to land on this planet. And he wants to go to this planet because it's, darkness all the time there. But then when it lands, I think it lands on the wrong side of the planet or something, where it's daytime all the time. And so he's doomed. But I just always loved that, and I always wished that I could see a movie that would actually sort of convey the creepiness of that particular vampire. And I don't-
Interestingly, that's kind of sort of Vampirella's origin.
True, but this predated the arrival of Vampirella, I believe.
Ah, okay,
I
cool.
believe it was a year or two before Vampirella was actually published.
Do you have a reprint of it, or have you found a reprint of it?
I don't anymore, no.
All right. If you can figure out which issue it is, I'll look around for you, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, because they were started doing those hardcover like special editions a couple years back.
Yes.
Yeah.
It might be one of
They're
those.
still doing those, yeah.
Rick?
I'm kind of like David with the creepies and the eerie and stuff like that. And I guess, one of my favorites is one of a story that Bernie Wrightson did the artwork for.
Mm-hmm.
That the story's called Jennifer,
Yeah.
about this woman that's got this
yeah.
horrendously awful looking face, but a killer body,
Right.
and she's like eats everything.
Did they do that for Masters of Horror?
Yes, didn't they?
Okay.
Yes, that was Dario Argento did it. Yeah, that was my favorite episode of Masters of Horror.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Real quick, asking since you guys brought up Omega Man, what is each of your favorite adaptation of that story?
Last Man on Earth with Vince.
Mine too.
Price. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to say that was the best. I mean, I liked all three of them, but Vincent Price's version is better.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, that's my favorite as well.
Was,
Yeah,
was,
I agree with that too.
do you have any other comics?
Just the creepies and the eerie's, and, the Tales from the Crypt stuff.
Yeah.
I also grew up with Gold Key comics, and I liked their Boris Karloff.
That's what I was going to say, the Boris Karloff thing.
What, the thriller ones they were doing, or just
Well, they were
Boris Karloff tales?
Tales of Mystery or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, those
Boris
are cool.
Karloff's. And then they did one based on the Twilight Zone that was pretty good,
Yeah.
and their Dark Shadows were good.
Yeah, the Dark Shadow ones are worth a pretty penny if you're trying to get those.
And then you've got some of the New York graphic novels, like the 30 Days of Night,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was really good, and the movie was good too.
Yeah. Let's see.
Some of the heavy metals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably one of the best ones I've seen is the Alien,
Tell us about it.
the heavy metal comic version of Alien.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Who drew it?
You had to ask that.
No.
I can't remember who drew it.
Well, tell me about it. I mean, was it laid out like the movie?
Yeah, it was laid out like the movie. I mean, it was great. I mean, it's great.
Okay.
And you said that was in heavy metal?
Yeah, well, Heavy Metal released like a full book of it, kind of like a graphic novel version of it in comic form, and it was really good.
Was it like 79, 80, somewhere in there, maybe? When they
Yeah,
released the
79
book
or
of it?
80. Yeah.
That's good. It was good.
I liked heavy metal a lot back in that era.
Yeah, I've been trying to collect those actually, going back and getting the cheapest early issues I can.
Have you seen their H.P. Lovecraft issue?
No.
That's a real collectible. That was late 70s, early 80s. It's beautiful. I mean, everything in it is Lovecraft related. It has some of the most incredible art and collage type images.
And you don't happen to remember the issue or anything like that?
I can tell you in a second because I have it in yonder. But I think it's pretty expensive nowadays. Let me go see.
Okay.
I'll be back in a second. You guys keep talking.
I'll tell you, I'll get a little honorable mention here real quick while he's running off. The King Diamond comic that came or was in the Conspiracy album cover. I mean, it's short, only a couple of panels, but I thought that was super cool.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, in the Conspiracy album, there was just a short little black and white horror style comic.
Oh, wow. While we're waiting on David to find the magazine, just want to mention again, pick up your copy of Monster Magazine number 6, available at lulu.com. We're trying to get it up on Indie Planet, but they're still working on getting number 5 up, so they're a little bit behind their game right now. That's okay. You know, they run their own business. They're cool. But if you're looking for it, there it is. We're not doing any signed editions because this issue is pretty beefy in price because it is 120 pages. So signed editions are not going to be happening this time around.
Unless you come to a convention appearance by the great Vance Capley and Ricky Blaylock.
Right. If you're at a convention, yeah, we'll sign them there. But
Ricky won't. Only Vance will.
But that's the only way we're offering it this time because it's just the magazine's already expensive enough. Like it's over $15, and we figure if you're going to charge extra for more shipping, it's too much to put on somebody, and you know, it's a magazine, for goodness sake. It shouldn't be that expensive. But anyway, to get it by itself. You know, it's fine. It's a good magazine. 120 pages, fantastic stuff, fantastic articles, and David now is holding the magazine. Here we go.
Well, it's the October 1979 issue.
Okay.
Of Heavy Metal. It has a great photo montage on the cover by J.K. Potter, and it has art by Mobius.
Do you happen to know the issue number?
The issue number, let me see.
Check the indices.
Volume 3, number 6.
Volume 3, number 6. Okay. I was actually on a website that sells them, trying to find it, but they are not. They're just listed in, like, I'm up in the 70s now, so I'm not sure where that would be.
It's October 1979.
Okay.
And it has a strip called Final Justice. I don't know what that is. It's not anything Lovecraft wrote.
And Vance, I'm about to send you a picture. So, folks, when you hear the big ding, 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 that's Vance's phone, and that's me sending him stuff.
All right, cool.
It has a Dunwich Horror black and white strip by Breccia. I don't know how to pronounce that. Then there's a strip called Cthulhu, Ktulu.
Got it.
There is. I'm almost there. The side I'm looking at, I'm in the 1980s. So I'm scrolling. You said 79?
October 79.
October 79. October 79. There it is, and it is out of stock. Okay. I was hoping the site I go to would have it. They have the one before it, and they have the one after it, but they don't have that one.
I think because it was their Lovecraft issue, it's going to be
hard. Yeah, that is a great cover.
It has a really cool strip toward the middle called HPL, a short script, where he himself is a bit of a character in it.
Oh, that's cool.
There's a poem called Love's Craft, a strip called Dewsbury's Masterpiece. I think some of these strips are just sort of Lovecraft inspired, not necessarily based on Lovecraft.
Well, you know, he was basically Randolph Carter.
Correct.
So
he's like Edgar Allan Poe in that you read a story by him, and very often you picture the narrator as Poe or as Lovecraft.
Yeah, totally.
And their fictional characters have influenced the way people have interpreted their own lives and personalities, sometimes unfairly.
That's true, too.
Because Lovecraft wasn't this, you know, he was fairly nocturnal, and his characters were somewhat based on him, but he wasn't quite as eccentric as the characters. And same with Poe. I think a lot of people think of Poe as an opium, you know, smoking, alcoholic, maniac, and neurotic. And, you know, he had his issues, but I don't think he was ever a drug addict. He wrote about characters who were. That doesn't mean he was. But he often wrote in the first person, so, you know, it's easy
to do that. Yeah. And that wasn't me, by the way, folks. That ding.
Oh, okay. There's a Pat and Vivian strip that's really good. Alchemist's Notebook, which is, I think, a discussion.
And a lot of people don't take into consideration, too, that, yeah, Lovecraft was kind of xenophobic in his early writings, but as he got older, he kind of mellowed out a bit with a lot of that kind of stuff, and I don't think people give him credit for the fact that he, you know, kind of opened up his worldview a bit.
He did very much so, yeah. In fact, he became almost a liberal in his last years in the mid-30s.
Like a lot of his later stuff, where he started getting more into, I guess, the cosmic horror and almost sci-fi stuff. I think some of that's his best stuff, anyway.
Oh yeah, he would say that, and the real serious Lovecraft scholars all. The stuff he wrote in the late 20s and into the 30s is much more cosmic. He had really evolved his philosophy of horror. I mean, he was always cosmic, He always valued the cosmic. He went for a cosmic sense of awe.
And I know it's a very unpopular thing to say, but I like August Derleth's work as well, or what I've read.
Yeah, he was a good craftsman. He was. I enjoy his stuff, and some of the stuff he wrote that's not Lovecraft oriented is really good, really memorable.
And without him, we may not have Lovecraft today, because he's the one that kept Lovecraft's writings alive.
No doubt about it. Although some people argue that by creating Arkham House in Wisconsin and making that, the one purview of Lovecraft, that he sort of ghettoized Lovecraft for a few decades there.
Interesting.
He made it hard for any of the national non-specialty presses to publish Lovecraft. He sort of had a proprietary. He even claimed copyright ownership, which was probably not accurate.
But our same token, had he not done what he did, would anyone have been wanting to put the stuff out to begin with?
That's an open question, and we can never settle that. There's an argument over that. Some people say, that there was some interest in the late 30s, early 40s from some of the New York publishers to do, mass distributed Lovecraft volumes.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But that he actually made it too difficult for them, maybe deliberately. But that's the minority view, I think. The majority view is that he did preserve Lovecraft's writings and made him. If it weren't for him, it might not be what he is today.
Yeah, and I try to take the view of, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. I try not to form too heavy an opinion on something I really don't know what the case was.
The one thing you can definitively hurl at August Derleth is that he misunderstood Lovecraft's philosophy of his cosmos, his so-called Cthulhu mythos.
That's true, because he really took it to a good versus evil kind of place, whereas that was never Lovecraft's forte.
Exactly. Lovecraft would have abominated that because he wasn't about good and evil.
Yeah, because I don't think he ever saw Cthulhu as evil. Cthulhu just was Cthulhu.
Yeah, he believed, that he had kind of an anti-natalist cosmology. I mean, he was a materialist. He didn't believe in life after death and ghosts and spirits in that sense. He had almost a science fiction view of his pantheon of nightmares, and he just viewed it almost detached, in a detached scientific way. There are forces out there that are way beyond us. They've been here a long time. They may be wanting to get back, and they're probably not interested in us except as, in whatever way we can benefit them.
Reading Lovecraft stuff, even still, it amazes me that he was writing this stuff so long ago, and it still feels so fresh.
He was ahead of his time, no doubt about that. No doubt.
I think what helps from what I've read, when I read Dagon and when I read you had loaned me that a few years ago, the heavy metal. What I found when I read it, because I'm not very scholarly about these things, but in my opinion, I feel like that he was very general, kind of like when you read vintage horror stuff, they keep it general, so for each generation that reads it, it's not set. This story sits here. This is how it's supposed to be in this time period. Pop culture references to make sure you know where it's. that's not there. It exists, and it can exist any time period. It's my opinion.
Oh, you're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Well, I've got a question. Reanimator.
Correct.
Have you read it?
Yeah, definitely, many times.
How does that compare to the movie?
I'll defer to Slim on that. I've never read it.
I'd say, I mean, it's quite different, very, very different. But I very much enjoy that movie. So, but yeah, it's pretty different.
Okay.
I think
Like it takes place, if I'm not mistaken, during is it World War One? Maybe.
it would have to be. He died before World War II.
Oh, of course, yeah. So yeah, it takes place then, and they go. Herbert West goes overseas, and he's starting his research or whatever in the war effort. He's kind of using the horrors of the war to hide what he's actually up to.
Okay.
Well, I had a great resentment toward that movie for a long time. Although it is one of the most entertaining horror films of the 80s. Because an awful lot of people, a whole generation, probably your generation, Slim,
Yeah, that was our first exposure.
they thought that was Lovecraft. And movies in imitation of that, and other movies Stuart Gordon did. But that's, Lovecraft thought very poorly of that story. He thought it was just a potboiler that he basically wrote for money, and it didn't really represent the Lovecraft that most of the literary types value.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean I really enjoy the 80s and 90s Lovecraft adaptions, but you notice they're always so sleazy, which is the funny thing because Lovecraft's writing was not sleazy, but for some reason when they do a Lovecraft adaptation, it's going to be sleazy for some reason.
Because of Reanimator.
Yeah.
And there's just a general vibe of horror films, in that era. And even today.
Like you take, or let's say Reanimator. Can you imagine if you brought Lovecraft from the past and had him sit down and watch that movie, just how horrified he would be?
Yeah, he went to movies and generally was fairly critical, of Dracula and Frankenstein. And, they were new to, in his day. And he found ways to enjoy them, but I don't think he took any movies very seriously.
What is your favorite Lovecraft story, Dave?
Probably The Shadow out of Innsmouth.
That's a good one.
I really like that. Probably his greatest story. Well, Call of Cthulhu is a real masterpiece. That was the first story in which he really. I don't know. He was toying with this idea of these elder gods and this this sort of fake mythology in some earlier bits, but this was the first story where it just all coalesced for him, and it's written so brilliantly as these different documents, and it's almost like a found footage film.
Oh yeah, I mean that's my favorite. I mean I know that's the obvious choice, but it's a fan favorite for a reason.
A lot of people love the Dunwich horror or Dunwich horror.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, but some of the more serious Lovecraft commentators think that it's a little too derivative of some other writers, and that it is not really up to par for the other stories he was writing in that period, which is his maturity, his greatest era.
I like it.
I love it, but
Yeah.
but there are those who think it's kind of not up to par for that period. He was writing things like The Whisper in Darkness, At the Mountains of Madness, toward the end there, and a lot of people think his greatest story is The Color Out of Space.
I've heard that. Yeah, it's a good story, but wouldn't be my favorite.
Yeah, I admire it a lot too, and I like it a lot. I don't think it's my favorite.
I'll tell you, my second favorite is probably, and it's a really short one, but I love it, is Imprisoned with the Pharaohs.
I've never read that one.
That one's a good one. And funny thing, that was actually, he wrote it. It was supposed to be a Houdini story.
Oh,
Like,
really?
it was actually supposed to be something that
that's
really
right.
happened.
That was one that he ghost wrote for Houdini. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Right. But it's probably, you can probably call it a Lovecraft story, because when he ghost wrote something, he pretty much put his, his heart and soul into the rewriting, making it good.
Oh,
And
yeah, I mean, it's totally a Lovecraft story, and it's a really good one, too.
Yeah. And he wasted a lot of time on those ghostwriting assignments, because he put so much time and effort into each one, and none of his ghostwriting clients were worthy of his attentions. He just did it for
The money.
the pittance that he got from it.
Right.
But he did enjoy doing it, though. Right?
I don't know that no, I think he hated it.
Oh, did it come across that way in the stories?
In his letters. No, he did such a good job that some of the stories are almost accepted as part of his canon.
Wow.
But he
Well, again, Imprisoned with the Pharaohs is a great, even though I think that was, I don't think it was ever published under Houdini's name. I think it was always Lovecraft, but that was the original intention. Am I right?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's correct. He did that one and maybe another one or two for Houdini. And I don't know that any of them were ever published under Houdini's name, but they were intended to be. I don't remember what happened.
Oh, this is kind of veering off just a slight bit. Apologies.
Oh, that's no problem. Dave and I have been hogging the conversation.
No,
I'm sorry.
no.
I didn't mean to get us off on Lovecraft.
No.
Yeah.
You are fine. You're fine. In the '60s, when Ditko and Lee were working on Doctor Strange, when I read the H.P. Lovecraft stuff in that magazine, it's like they borrowed from Lovecraft a lot. So, I mean, I wonder. I mean, I know it's affected many other writers and comics and things like that, but if you think about it, those stories were written, what, 20s and 30s, something like that?
20s and 30s.
All right, influencing people into the 60s, and then when the 70s generation started taking over, like Roy Thomas and stuff, writing the Doctor Strange comics, they were doing the Cthulhu stuff, and they were, of course, they would change it just enough, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And it was bringing in all that stuff. I mean, just changing it enough where they don't get sued. And it was such a major influence that, like I was trying to say earlier, but I couldn't get the words out right. I think the stories are timeless. That's the word I was trying to say a while ago.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, another reason for that, I think, is that Lovecraft himself was out of time. Just as Poe. Poe is the one American writer in the American pantheon, and he was the Lovecraft of the 1800s.
Yes.
The influential, person. Lovecraft, Poe didn't really. He was from the South. He was raised in. He considered himself a Southern gentleman.
Right.
But did he write Southern Gothic? No.
Nope.
Is he associated with the South the way a Faulkner is? No.
Nope.
He wrote about these faux European medieval type places and characters. Of course, he did live during his elementary school years in England for about 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
But Lovecraft also, was pretty much raised by his mother and his aunts and his grandfather, and in a big house with a big library.
Yeah.
Never graduated from high school. Pretty much self-educated. And he considered himself an 18th century gentleman. He identified with the 18th century in England.
Yeah.
Writers, like Samuel Johnson and.
What was it, Lord Dunsany that he was super into?
Well, Dunsany was later. He was a Romantic era. No, I don't think he was into Dunsany.
Didn't he die in poverty too?
I was thinking about Lord Byron. Yes, you're right. Lord Dunsany. Yeah. It's actually pronounced Dunsany for some odd reason.
Dunsany, okay.
Yeah. Now he was a British writer who wrote really lyrical flights of fantasy, where he created all these dream worlds. And Lovecraft responded very much to that because it had a cosmic element that touched him and coincided with his cosmic view of things.
Okay, last Lovecraft thing, Vance and Ricky. Sorry, then I'll leave it alone. But
You're
Dave,
fine.
what is your favorite of the kind of Lovecraft's buddies, the people he kind of would write stories with, and
The ones who were contemporary with him.
yeah, kind of his collaborators, so to speak.
Well, of course, you know, they were much younger than he, but people like August Derleth and Robert Bloch. There was a fellow named Barr. What's his name? He committed suicide, but he was a young fellow, and Lovecraft spent a couple of summers, I think summers, with him in Florida in his last couple of years.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Robert Bloch stuff. Like
Yeah.
when they were doing that thing where one would write a story, then the other one would kind of write a follow-up story, and so on. I really enjoyed that little patch there.
That's right. That's probably my favorite too. Yeah, probably Robert Bloch. I've read those stories you're talking about. And Robert Bloch's early stories, some of them were very Lovecraft influenced. Of course, then he moved away from that into psychological horror in the 50s, which led to Psycho.
Yes, it did.
And of course, he's especially well known, and he started this, I guess, also in the 50s, writing these punchy little short stories that are full of twist endings and puns, and he does that better than anybody who writes that kind of thing. I'm not sure Lovecraft would have liked them. But yeah, Robert Barlow is what I was trying to think of. He had great talent, and I think Lovecraft saw that, even though he was just a teenage boy. But he decided to go into archaeology, and he wound up moving to Mexico and making his name teaching at a university in, I think, Mexico City, and doing archaeology. He became very well known in that field, in Mexican archaeology.
Wow, that's interesting.
But he was gay, and apparently he committed suicide when he thought that was going to be used against him.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
And you said that was Robert Barlow?
Robert Barlow. Lovecraft named him as his literary executor. And I think he did the best job he could have, but not long after Lovecraft's death, a lot of Lovecraft's other friends, like Clark Ashton Smith, turned against Barlow. They thought he was trying to shut them out or something.
Clark Ashton Smith, that's another one I was trying to remember that was escaping me.
Right. I would say the two people that he admired the most during his lifetime were Clark Ashton Smith and Lord Dunsany, who were contemporaries of his. And I think he admired them so much because they wrote these dreamlike vision stories that had a cosmic outlook. They weren't horror stories, although they wrote a few of those. I think he cared more about cosmic visions than he did horror per se.
Right, right.
All right, enough Lovecraft.
So Monster Magazine, issue number 97.
Yeah.
What can we expect?
Well, we're not there yet. But speaking of Monster Magazine, issue number 6 is available. Please pick it up at lulu.com. Right now, our wonderful cover artist, Rockin' Ricky Blaylock.
Rockin' Rebel Ricky.
Rockin' Rebel Ricky. He is working on a fantastic Frankenstein piece. And Ricky, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, it's going to show 3, I guess, of the 4 Universal Frankensteins.
Uh-huh.
It's going to have Glenn Strange, Boris Karloff, and Lon Chaney Jr.
Very
The
cool.
person that I'm doing it for asked for Lugosi to be left off because he views Lugosi more as Dracula
Right, right.
and not Frankenstein.
Right. Yeah.
And
Well,
so-
I view Lon Chaney more as the wolf.
well, I do the same. And I view Glenn Strange more as the bartender from Gunsmoke.
Actually, I do too, but
Glenn
I
Strange
think
was the
Glenn
longest
Strange-
Frankenstein, wasn't he?
I think he is his face
Yeah.
under that makeup is the generic Frankenstein.
Yep.
True.
Yeah.
And it's the most perfect looking aesthetically. His
Yeah.
face under that makeup is aesthetically perfect.
He fits the monster.
Mhm.
I don't know, man.
That-
Karloff, to me,
That's the
is,
classic.
is
That's the classic.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I think Lugosi's great. I love his performance. I love the snarls and all that. I
Mhm.
wish they let him talk in the movie like
Me
he
too.
did.
Yeah.
I think Chaney's fine, but I think both Chaney and Lugosi, their faces are too fat.
Too fat.
Yeah. That's
They're
it.
too, well, I wouldn't say fat at the time, maybe too round.
Yeah, too
Round, yeah.
Yeah.
And Karloff in those three films,
Was more gaunt looking.
he was gaunt. He was closer to Glenn Strange, and he was a lot better actor than Glenn Strange.
Yes.
He gave
Yes.
great performances under that makeup. But Glenn Strange just had a look about him.
Yeah.
And maybe Pierce had just perfected the art of doing that makeup by the time he got to Strange,
Or his assistants.
or his assistant.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't that much of a glory grabber as Bud Westmore.
Westmoreland.
Yeah. So, anyway, well, the person wanting this, is this someone we both know?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is it someone who works on the magazine with us?
Yes, it is.
Shout out to Mark Ballard.
Shout out to
Mark
Mark Ballard.
Ballard. Yay!
Comic City, Mark Ballard.
Comic City Mark Ballard. Yes, sir.
Well, so then as a favor to me, would you throw Christopher Lee on there in the background and just not tell him?
We'll talk to Mark about that. Mark writes the reviews for the comic shows. So for those who don't buy our magazine or are listening to this podcast, you should buy our magazines. It's a lot of fun. Spend some money, you lazy chumps. Anyway,
Vance has worked himself to the bone over issue number 6. This issue is a giant.
And we did surprisingly well at our hometown show.
Oh gosh, those things flew off like hotcakes.
yeah, we didn't have no number 6s because it
Wasn't ready.
It whooped my butt. I mean, there was no way. There's no way I could get them done in time. So
I mean, the turnout at that little show
was phenomenal.
was really, really good.
I hope
And
they do another one soon. I hope they don't wait till next year. I hope they do one this fall.
Are they going to try to do one this fall, maybe?
I don't know, but I'm gonna drop little hints. If you guys are on Facebook and you see the Columbia Comic and Toy Expo, put little hints on there. Like, hey, you should do a show in the fall, like a Halloween show.
And if you're close enough to come out. And
Yeah,
see
come
us.
on out. Yeah,
Yeah, they had an incredibly great turnout.
it was a lot of fun. And David got to be there briefly for a minute. Ricky was there. I was there. Dave Good was there. And
All the way from New York City.
all the way from New York City.
And he brought a load of salsa with him.
No, that was the joke, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Slim was there in spirit.
In spirit, yes, I was.
Yes.
We really wish we could get some of the other people who have put articles in the magazine to come down and hang out with us and stuff. And we want to thank Wayne Judge, who's always putting an article together for us. Sometimes last minute. Thank you, Wayne Judge.
And there's a bad horror joke of the week in there, isn't there?
Yeah, Slim. He's always got the bad horror joke in there, and it's
And we want Slim to be able to come to one of the shows eventually.
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, boys, I actually just got word that there's a bad yard gnome attack in the area, so I need to be heading off to deal with such things.
All right.
Oh.
Well, before I go, I just want to say that thank you for being on, and also my favorite horror comic of the time was probably stuff from the EC reprints that were done in the 90s. We thank you all for watching. We hope you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you check out Midnite Monster Party with Slim over there. Thank you all, and we will see you on the next Monster Magazine Weekly. Good night.
Good night.
We'll have to do a part 2 just so you can talk about. We're sorry about that.
Bye, everybody.